mostly black people, but the ownership and control of our wealth is not there, and then you still have to deal with high crime and what have you. He wrote part 1 and part 2 article. If you got 20,000, let's say you got 20,000 Deltas going down to D.C., where are you going to eat at? How many black-owned and controlled restaurants are there? Think about the money you spend in plane tickets, bus tickets, gas, whatever, to get there. Do you have a black-owned and controlled hotel to stay while you're down there? Well, I'm sure if a few thousand of y'all are going there X amount of times, whether it's every 2 years or whatever, y'all might be able to say, well, why don't we pool our money there to support a business that's already down, or if one doesn't exist, to create one, so when we go down there, we'll have a black-owned and controlled restaurant to support black-owned and controlled hotel. Maybe there's, the fact that, I know this is probably way down the line for some of us, but I don't know, I haven't seen evidence that we have any black-owned and controlled airline in the whole United States. Yet people keep bragging about how much money Oprah has and so forth.
Yeah.
And so even though his article didn't necessarily touch on the airlines, I mentioned some very practical things you can do. Whenever thousands of you guys are assembling, and I'm using you guys as an ambiguous term for these black groups and things, they're going to spend tons of money on travel, eating, lodging. Will it be a sacrifice saying, hey, we're going to sacrifice a convention to pull all the money that we would have spent going down there to create a hotel, or to put some economic pressure on so-and-so, or what have you? There's been complaints about black people going down, and I've heard of Black Beach Week, and et cetera, where we weren't necessarily treated right, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many things we can do from a practical standpoint that, yes, it requires more than just one person doing it, but instead of making it look like white supremacy or our own problems as this godlike, superhuman, non-achievable behemoth, there's easy things that can be done.
It can be done.
So Black Dollars Matter summarizes several simple economic things we can do. One more thing I want to speak to more recently, if we remember back when Ray Rice was accused of, which he did when Ray Rice got into a domestic incident with his girlfriend, who eventually became his wife. Once the NFL got criticized too much about it using him as a catalyst, the CEO of Coca-Cola comes out to criticize the NFL for being too lenient on their players for domestic violence.
Yep.
Now, how many of us have been shot and killed by police officers, and the CEO of Coke hasn't said one word?
Well, Coke ain't
Black people get
receiving no
right?
checks. Coke ain't receiving no checks from us.
Yep. Oh yeah. The sad thing is, I'm sure plenty of black people, while we're talking about Colin Kaepernick taking the knee, plenty of black people be watching the Super Bowl drinking a Coke.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So if we are truly the biggest consumers in America for our percentage of numbers in this country, then one of the first things we should do, in addition to not being always consumers, is to redirect our dollars, which is the basics of what Baba Klingman is trying to teach us.
Why is that? I always ask, why is that concept so hard, to really push and for people to really grab? Because you said it earlier about all the stuff that we go through as a people, right? Through different races and different systems in place and all that. We should be more together than ever, right? Because we share a common bond of unfairness, negativity, or hurdles thrown at us, if you will. So, that should drive us together, but sometimes that does anything but that.
Yes, and I guess without getting extremely, psychologist-minded on it, I will just say that after the centuries of enslavement, the enslavement process started with our mind, and until it's ended with that individual or us as a group ends with the mind.
No doubt.
The biggest and probably most profound victory of white supremacy, when it has victory over people that are not white, is them embracing any and everything that's not their original culture and assuming there's no value or less value in whatever is their original culture.
And no need to even verify. I'm comfortably uncomfortable. And that's a very unfortunate spot to be in. What did Marcus Garvey say? The biggest weapon against blacks is what? Disorganization?
Exactly. When you leave, in one thing, some of us have been without organized power for so long that we are, as Chancellor Williams says in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, a quick up and quick down people. If we can't create a computer program to save the world in 5 minutes, we assume it's not going to happen and we give up. Or
short-sighted.
We become short-sighted even when it comes to our economic empowerment. Short-sighted. Me, and I won't spend too much time on me, but I put in 10 hours before I came home today.
Right on.
And that was for that wasn't even for me.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
That means I got to put in for me whatever time I can make. For those that put me in for their people in this movement, they're sacrificing whatever time they can make. In other words, you have to make time. You have to inconvenience yourself. You have to be uncomfortable.
It's a must.
The example is a friend of mine that called somebody from his job, called someone to another location saying, hey, we need some info on so-and-so and so-and-so. So, oh, well, I'll give it to you, but you got to wait. I'm starting this business from my house. So he called the guy as part of his job. There was some kind of construction management thing going on. He called the guy as part of his job, and the guy was letting him know that he's transitioning from his job because he's starting a business out of his house. Well, that guy had to put in a lot of hours and put in something for himself.
You have to.
And of course, I would say it's even up a notch when you're doing it on behalf of black folks, because we've been taught and perpetuated and teach each other to love each other less, or in some cases hate each other. That, if we have a falling out, it's over. But, when we have a falling out with people of other ethnic groups or people that are not of the African family, we can forgive and forget so well that some of our sons and daughters marry them and vice versa. But when it comes to us, we find all kinds of excuses for why this super godlike power will make, you hear this a lot, why we will never do this or never do that. And the never is always referring to something positive. So for some reason, if you're saying we can never do this and we can never do that, especially when a member of the million is talking to you asking if you're interested, then maybe you are one of those people who thinks deep down inside we are inferior. Maybe you, if you're that type of person listening, one of the people who think that no matter how much I get mad if somebody, especially a white person, was to say I'm inferior, by my actions and deeds, I think we're inferior because we can't do, number one, what our ancestors used to do, and number two, we can't do it because the white person or whoever Asian does it. So that, unfortunately, is a negativity that any person who walks the path of the million has to deal with. But as long as we recognize it for what it is and step to the side from that person and go on to the next person who is hungry for a solution, and they see that clean glass being set down next to the dirty glass of negativity and hopelessness and despair, and say, hey, unless I want to assume that we are less than other people, then all I'm looking for is best practices. All I'm looking for is what's practical, what can work. Even things that may not be practical immediately, you can build up to it.
Yeah.
So the can-do spirit of the million also speaks to that.
I love it. I love the can-do spirit, because I tell people all the time, throw that word can't out your vocabulary. Can't, hope, maybe, it might. Throw that out your vocabulary, because, again, the universe is listening. The subconscious is always listening. So you definitely want to always speak those things out that you really want to happen in your life. And the universe will answer. I mean, just think about how we hooked up, right? It was just happening. It just so happened that way because it was just supposed to be. And it was just supposed to happen. And that's just how things are. I think sometimes we give up so quickly on ourselves because, as you say, because that lack of love or that lack of, well, I don't deserve nothing good no way. Good stuff doesn't happen to me anyway. Well, if you speak that way, then guess what? It won't.
Exactly. that actually is a good segue, since we're talking about negativity and what have you. We know that we are already taught and we teach, unfortunately, we being collectively as black folks, not necessarily we as members of the million, we are already taught and we teach that, that we can't get along, we can't do this, we can't do that. One thing we have to have, and one thing members have to have when they join a movement, and this is not one of those unattainable, oh, look at me type things. You have to have that love for your people enough to where you will stand with the utmost integrity and honesty in how you conduct your business practice, how you communicate with others, how you respect others, whether you agree with them or not. Again, how I mentioned how we don't get into these ego-tripping, armchair revolutionary YouTube wars with folks. We have no desire to, no time to, and we're not going to do it.
No room.
We have, yep, and like I said, we stand ready to explain who we are, what we are, why we believe what we are, etc., and why we know we can do it if, that this can work if we work it, as Baba Gayuka says, but we have no desire to sit there and get into frivolous debates while genocide is being set up for our people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
because that's where the distractions come into place, though. It's all about, again, the magic trick, right? The hocus pocus. You focus on all this other stuff that has nothing to do with nothing, having conversations that has no power to them, and then now you're letting just all this other appearance of it. Well, see, that's why black people can't get together right there. Look at those conscious people. Look at, they can't even get along, so there's no hope for us. So everybody put their own mindset where they were already on the fence anyway. All they needed was a little bit of confrontation. Oh, that's why I'm fool with them. Right? My mind, I already wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do it anyway. But now I see that, that makes me feel better about not doing it. Well, see, that's the reason why right there. So we feel good about doing our nothing because we let those little bitty excuses stop us. Because at the end of the day, we kind of fall into that. Well, that's how it is. It ain't going to be no better. See, we waiting for the sweet by and by. It's some here and now. I want some here and now.
Yep, the funny part, and me being a very spiritual person myself, and the co-founders of the movement being very spiritual.
Yes, sir.
I'm going out on a limb, and I know I speak for them when I say, how can we say that we're doing what our Creator intended for us to do if we're not trying to maximize our positivity right here and now? It don't mean that you'll have everything you want, but maximize the good things in life, the positive things. Everyone that considers himself a human being should also realize they have, without sounding cliche, that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that we hear quoted all the time is a universal principle that wasn't limited to Thomas Jefferson, and people universally understood it before Thomas Jefferson was even thought of.
Yes, thousands of years ago.
The Declaration of Independence, was even thought of. So, if God gave you, using the parable of the 10 talents again, remember the man that had one talent was punished and cast into outer darkness because even though he had less than everybody else there, the other two people there, he didn't do anything with the little bit he did have. He didn't maximize the positivity of what he did have. So wanting the here and now in the right way is nothing wrong with it. And to me, if I can enjoy life here reasonably well, knowing I'm going to have my ups and downs, and die and go to heaven and enjoy it even better, what's wrong with that?
Live your purpose. Live your purpose, man. Live your purpose while you're here. I think that's the rule. That's what we're supposed to have. We're supposed to live within our purpose, and that's the goal. I think that's the whole goal. And I think maybe that's why so many people are maybe aggravated and upset or a little bit uncomfortable, if you will, because they're outside of the natural progression of how things are supposed to be. They're outside of it because they don't feel like they have purpose. They don't feel special. They just see themselves as an employee or a parent or, a son or daughter. They don't really see themselves as significant, that they can really, truly make a change. But I promise you, and I tell you, you can. You can make a change out here. You just have to be a willing vessel, right? Because God doesn't qualify the call. What did he say? He didn't call to qualify. He qualifies the call. So when you have the opportunity to get out here and be used, man, let the universe and let the heavens use you, because when people use you, it's a whole different feeling. So when you feel good and you wake up, man, within your purpose, and you just wake up and with that can do